What if the next global conflict isn't fought on the ground, but in space? It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's real. As we head into 2026, Donald Trump's influence is poised to shape the future of warfare in ways we can't ignore. From missile defense systems in orbit to the rise of military space operations, the game is changing. But here's the twist. What if this new space race isn't just about national security, but the very future of humanity itself? Stay with me, because this is only the beginning. As 2026 nears, the race to dominate space is no longer about exploration. It's about military power. The United States is making its move with a staggering 40% budget increase for its Space Force, a move that could change the way wars are fought. And with Trump at the helm, the stakes are even higher. The goal? To build a missile defense shield so powerful, it could protect the U.S. from attacks launched from space. But here's the kicker. America's rivals aren't sitting back. Russia, China, and even Britain are ramping up their space capabilities. Could a new space arms race be on the horizon? What happens when every country in the world starts looking up, preparing to strike from above? This isn't just about satellites anymore. It's about the future of warfare, and if the U.S. falls behind, the consequences could be catastrophic. Let's talk about the Golden Dome, Trump's ambitious missile defense plan, which could make or break America's military future. This isn't just a theory. It's happening. The U.S. Space Force is working to create space-based interceptors that could destroy enemy missiles before they even leave the ground. But here's the twist. These interceptors aren't just about missiles. They could also target enemy satellites. Think about that for a second. America could take out hostile satellites from space, cutting off a nation's most powerful military tool. Now, let's pause and ask, why isn't everyone talking about the implications of this? If satellites can be taken out mid-orbit, what does that mean for global security? What does it mean for our reliance on space for everything from communications to military operations? And here's the kicker. Trump's plan doesn't just depend on Space Force. SpaceX and their massive Starship rockets could be the key to replenishing American satellites if they're destroyed in combat. Starship isn't just for exploration. It's America's military lifeline to the stars, but not everyone's playing nice in the sky. This is where things get intense. As America pushes forward, Russia isn't sitting idle. In fact, the country is suspected of developing a space-based nuclear weapon, something that could wipe out entire satellite networks in one strike. Imagine the chaos. A global military system completely disrupted in the blink of an eye. And yet, Russia is this close to tearing up the very rules that have kept space warfare in check since the 1960s. But here's where the stakes go through the roof. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967, which prohibits placing weapons of mass destruction in orbit, would be shattered. If Russia follows through, this wouldn't just be an attack on the U.S., it would be an attack on the very fabric of global order. So what does this mean? A future where the rules of war in space are no longer clear, no longer respected, where the fight above us could spill into everything below. And that's exactly what's at risk in 2026. But the chaos doesn't end with Russia. There's a growing contradiction in how nations are talking versus how they're acting. Take China, for example. Their space program has ramped up eightfold since 2015. And they're not just launching satellites, they're perfecting what American generals call on-orbit dogfighting tactics. These aren't just drills. This is a clear message to the U.S. and its allies. China is ready for space combat. Meanwhile, Trump is pushing for faster, stronger military capabilities in orbit. But here's where things take a dark turn. SpaceX, America's biggest player in the game, is already lined up for the majority of national security launches, including spy satellites. They're not just a private company anymore. They're America's first line of defense in space. And if you think this is a race for peace, think again. The arms race above us is only going to get more dangerous, more unpredictable. So where does this leave us? If space turns into the next battlefield, the only thing that's certain is that everything we know about warfare could change overnight. Now, let's stack the pressure. In 2026, it's not just space weapons that are escalating. The world economy is about to face a major shift as well. Central banks, which are supposed to stay neutral, are coming under direct political fire. Trump's upcoming appointment to replace Jerome Powell could push the Federal Reserve to act in ways that completely distort the economy. Meanwhile, in Europe, leaders like Francis Bardella are talking about the ECB buying up national debt just to keep the lights on. And in the UK, even the Greens and the Reform Party want to hijack the Bank of England for their own political gain. What happens when the central banks that are supposed to keep things stable are forced to follow the whims of politicians? And that's not all. In the sports world, a new era of human enhancement is coming. In Las Vegas, athletes will compete under the influence of performance-enhancing drugs, no longer banned but encouraged. What does that say about our values, about our future? The world is changing, and fast. What happens if this continues? Now let's bring this home. What does all this mean for you? In 2026, the military arms race in space and the growing influence of political forces over central banks will have real direct consequences on your life. Higher interest rates, higher inflation, a skyrocketing cost of living, all while world powers play their dangerous games above us. And then there's the enhanced games. Imagine a world where athletes are encouraged to take performance-enhancing drugs just to compete. What happens when young athletes who look up to these stars start thinking it's normal to alter their bodies with chemicals? What happens when the idea of pushing human limits becomes just another part of everyday life? We're standing on the edge of a future where space could become a war zone, where the economy could crumble, and where human enhancement could become the new norm. How far are we willing to go to stay on top? If this feels familiar, say so in the comments. This is just the beginning. But here's where it gets unsettling. This isn't just about bad decisions or isolated incidents. It's about the systems that allow these things to happen. Take space weapons. Why are we rushing to weaponize the sky? The answer lies in the deeper mechanisms of fear and control. Nations aren't just preparing for potential threats, they're preparing for any threat, even if it means normalizing space-based warfare. And behind that rush, there's a very real fear, the fear of falling behind. Then, consider the manipulation of central banks. The pressure on institutions like the Federal Reserve isn't just a byproduct of political games. It's the result of a system that rewards short-term gains over long-term stability. The independence of central banks was supposed to prevent political interference in economic policy. Yet in 2026, we're seeing that independence slip. If this trend continues, we're heading toward a financial landscape where economic decisions aren't made for the greater good. They're made to serve the loudest voices in the room. As for human enhancement, it's not just about bettering the human body, it's about a future where enhancement is expected, normalized, and monetized. It's driven by big money, investors who see our bodies not as temples, but as potential profit margins. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it's the future we're heading toward if we don't take a hard look at the systems in play. This isn't just about fighting wars or boosting athletic performance, it's about power, control, and the systems that make it all possible. So, what happens next? There are two possible futures unfolding. On one hand, the U.S. could double down on its military space efforts, securing its dominance, but possibly triggering a dangerous arms race. If Russia and China continue to advance their own space weapons, we could find ourselves locked in a high-stakes standoff where the smallest misstep could lead to a global conflict. On the other hand, there's a chance the pressure could backfire. What if the desire to control space leads to the breakdown of international agreements, leaving no rules in place for military engagement? The future of space could be one where anything goes, and the consequences of that kind of instability are terrifying. But here's the twist. Whether we like it or not, the next move is already in play. With Trump's influence growing, we may be seeing the early stages of a new world order, one where space warfare, economic manipulation, and human enhancement are no longer fringe topics, but part of everyday life. The question is, which path will we take, and who will be the ones leading us there? In the end, 2026 will force us to confront a hard truth. The world we've known is changing faster than we can adapt. Space is no longer the final frontier, it's the new battlefield. Economic stability? It's now at the mercy of political whims. Human enhancement, what was once science fiction, is becoming a reality, and the lines between progress and exploitation are blurring fast. But here's the insight that ties it all together. Everything we're seeing isn't just about the future, it's about control. From space to the economy to our own bodies, power lies in who can shape the future. And right now, we're all caught in a game where the rules are still being written. The next few years will determine whether we're heading into a golden age or a dystopian future. What happens next? That's the story we're still writing. For more on where we're headed, make sure to follow. The future's unfolding right now, and we need to understand it before it's too late.